Hi, and welcome to another WORT Spring 2021 election. My name is Jade Isiri Ramos. I'm a reporter and producer with WORT.
And I'm Shali Pittman, the news director at WORT. Before we get started, a few quick notes. You can see all the candidates up for election as well as these debates in real time on our website at wortfm.org. Just click on the Spring 2021 election tab where you can also submit your questions for upcoming debates. If you have questions or comments about the debates or their mechanics, please do contact me, chali@wartfm.org or 608-321-9586. I should add two important points. One is that this is not being broadcast live. There's been some confusion about that. These will be edited and later aired for broadcast. We should also note that this debate and the remainder of our debates will be live tweeted, which is very cool. Thanks to @HighestWins on Twitter for doing so and being a part of this as well.
All right, and on to tonight's debate. Our candidates are Jeanette Figueroa Cole and Dr. Mara Eisch. Incumbent Zachary Hennick is not running for re-election. Yannette and Mara are both hoping to represent District 10. If you are not familiar with this district, Oana Hills Golf Course sits right in the center. Whitney Way defines most of its western border, while the Arboretum defines its eastern border. Since there are just two candidates for this race, the election is going to be on April 6th.
The date of the spring election.
The date of the spring election.
And now on to our candidate bios. Let's start with Jeanette Figueroa Cole, who is originally from Puerto Rico and has lived in Madison for the last 30 years. After Hurricane Maria in 2017, Jeanette established the Puerto Rico Relief Fund of South Central Wisconsin and raised over $90,000. Professionally, she has had over 2 decades of experience in the healthcare and medical devices manufacturing field. She has also served as the president of the Duns Marsh Neighborhood Association and is currently the board of directors treasurer for Friends of the State Street family. Welcome.
And Dr. Mara Eisch has been a resident of Madison's West Side for nearly 20 years. As a nurse, she worked at many local hospitals, and she is also retired as a nurse educator from both UW-Madison and MATC. She also served as faculty advisor to the Student Nurse Association, where she was able to support many now practicing nurses in Madison. Much of her 30-year-long career involved committee leadership. Mara has been involved with the Summit Woods Neighborhood Association since its founding in 2005. She is the current treasurer. In her retirement, Mara Eisch has renewed her interest in urban farming. I want to thank you both for being here.
And in a moment, we will turn to the candidates for their opening statements. But first, a little bit about the rules. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer each question. Each candidate will also have 2 60-second rebuttals to use throughout the debate, so choose wisely. Opening and closing remarks will also be about 3 minutes, and your microphone will be muted while the other candidate is speaking, or if you run over time for an extended amount of time, just think of the recent presidential debates situation.
I will be our timekeeper today, so if I hold up this yellow card, you have 30 seconds to finish your answer, and if you see this red card, you went over. We flipped a coin before going live, so we're going to start with opening remarks, and I believe, Jeanette, you are going first, so Jeanette Figueroa Cole. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you to Ward for putting this debate together. Thank you, Mara, for running, and thank you to those watching and following my campaign. My name is Jeanette Figueroa Cole, and I'm running for District 10 of the Madison City Council. I lived in Madison for almost 30 years and in this district for about 25 years. I'm running to secure the long-term health and safety of our community. Through collaboration and participatory budgeting, we can ensure all people have the resources to thrive. Data shows that safety can be achieved by ensuring people's basic needs are met. I strongly believe that 2020 and COVID-19 have brought us to the opportunity to focus on issues that impact our community the most. I believe that as a Puerto Rican, as a woman, as an advocate for people experiencing homelessness, and with my background on data analytics, systems, and business processes, I will bring a different perspective to the table. My top priorities are public safety, focus on mental health. A healthy community is a safe community. A budget that focuses on meeting people's basic needs, and a cross-agency collaboration to ensure we can maximize the available resources in order to efficiently serve our people. Thank you.
Thank you for that opening statement. Dr. Mara Eisch, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you, Wart, for making these interviews possible and available to the residents of Madison. I'm here with my vintage Wart coffee mug and ready to talk about the issues facing District 10. I moved to Madison in late August 2001, just before 9/11. I moved here for my youngest son, for him to attend Wingra School, needing special assistance. It was the best move for both of us. Today, I look like an accomplished professional. I'm a retired clinical professor from the School of Nursing at UW and retired nursing faculty from MATC. But I began my nursing education with an associate's degree at Fox Valley Technical College as a 23-year-old widow with 3 young boys. I was also a first-generation college graduate. I moved to Milwaukee with my sons to obtain a bachelor's degree at Alverno College. And if you know anything about Alverno, you know that they prepare women to think, problem solve, and communicate. I earned a master's degree from UW Oshkosh in nursing and a doctorate in nursing practice from Minnesota State University Moorhead, with an emphasis in older adult falls in the community. I bring many skills to the role of alder from my nurse and educator role experiences. As a nurse, no patient came to me with a little book that they pulled out of their pocket and said, "This is how I work. Please follow these directions." I had to develop and use assessment skills. Those are data gathering skills, communication and problem solving skills in many different contexts with many different patients to facilitate achieving the patient's goals. Please note I said the patient's goals, not my goals. This is important because I'm not seeking an alder position to do for anyone. I am seeking this position to facilitate and advocate that the residents of District 10 are not just heard, but they are listened to, and that they are able to do the speaking, that their voices are heard at the table of all of city government, not just the Common Council. I'm a big picture systems thinker and believe the work is in the details, and I look forward to working on them. Thank you.
Thank you both for those opening remarks. We will now move to questions.
Fantastic. So our first question has to do with equity. A 2013 Race to Equity report found extreme racial disparities in Madison that continue to persist. Candidates, what, if any, tangible change has the City of Madison made in the last few years? And what tangible steps would you take as alder to shrink the disparities in our city? Let's start with Dr. Mara Eisch, who has 3 minutes to respond.
It's a very good question. And certainly racial disparity and inequality is on the minds of everybody today. Well, thank you. I don't know that we've made much progress in Madison in the area of racial inequality, racial disparities. In fact, I don't think we've made much progress in decades. It seems that the more we try to legislate, the more difficult the problem becomes. Now, the city has a responsibility in terms of addressing disparities in housing, transportation, food, healthcare. But I also think as individuals, we have a responsibility. We need to start talking to each other. We need to be talking to each other about the hard issues. This isn't going to get solved by one color. It's going to get solved by all of us. And only if we all get involved in addressing this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Eisch. And now, Jeanette Figueroa Cole, you have 3 minutes to respond as well.
Yes, I agree in the sense I think Madison should be doing more. We live in one of the most segregated cities in the country, where the inequalities are continually seen on higher incarceration rates for people of color, where there's where we have the smallest population, 7% of the population is African American, but yet more arrests are happening on that population, where the gap in schools it's also higher for people of color, Latinos, and indigenous people and Blacks. So I think there's way more to do, that the city hasn't really done enough. But I also see that there's areas where the city has really taken an approach to address those inequalities. And I see a lot of people, like in this round of campaigning, a lot of people coming to the table that understands and have lived through those equalities. The representation is going to be extremely important on the next round of city council members. And I think having them at the table will really bring the change that Madison has the potential to bring. We live in a city that is constantly comes up as the best city in the nation to live in. And that is a true statement, but I always say it's the best city the best city on the nation for everyone that lives here. That is not the reality for many of us living in our communities. I do believe that there's projects on the housing area, like the project in Park Street, where there was intent in there to have a development that includes a multi-income facility that incorporates a grocery store to avoid having food deserts in the area. They also make sure that facility is located in a centralized location where they have access to transit. And to just the cherry on the top of the cake, they gave the contract to a minority company. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but I see the city moving in that direction. So I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful to see those changes, and I'm very hopeful for the new council that is coming into play. That we need more of that. We need more housing. We need to make sure that we need affordable housing in Madison. And everybody in this city can benefit from affordable housing. We need more jobs. We need job training. There's so many things that are all related to the basic needs of our people that haven't been met, and they're not difficult things. We can accomplish those goals and make people healthier. The healthier communities we get, the safer we're all going to be. We need to work as a
You can finish your sentence.
we need to work together. I'm sorry, I didn't see the other card. We need to work together within the communities, and then bring that information up to the city council so we can make the changes that the city needs.
Thank you both so much for those responses. Do you have follow-ups or rebuttals to what the other said? You do?
Yes.
Dr. Eisch? Okay, great.
Yes. Thank you. I do agree that housing is an incredibly important piece of the racial disparities that we experience in Madison. But the amount of building that is going on for apartments right now is really subsidized housing for people who already have housing. It isn't going to address the needs of those people who are in the 20, 30, and 40 percentile of income within Dane County. And so I think in order for us to get a handle on this, the city is going to need to do the building and do the management. And not that people live there forever, but it provides them with an opportunity to know that they have secure housing, and now they can focus on their job development, their self-development, care of the family, and moving on to bigger and better things. It isn't that minorities being in Madison is a new thing. So we need to work differently at addressing it.
Okay. Jeanette, would you like to respond? Okay. You are on mute. There we go.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I have worked as a volunteer for Friends of Stacy Families for almost 4 years. The increase on people experiencing homelessness continue to go up. We need, like I said earlier, we need affordable housing. Yes, I totally agree. We need to have developments that serves the people's needs, not luxury high rises for developers to make money, or apartments that segregate low income people so they can exploit it by the landlords. We must hold ourselves accountable when entertaining the not in my backyard rhetoric. We all need affordable housing in this city, from the homeless families, the school teachers, the farm workers. Madison needs more affordable housing. Stop making buildings, build communities that are mixed generational, mixed cultural, and multiracial, with access to their own libraries, community centers, groceries, community gardens, restaurants, and access to rapid transit. Build communities and build a sense of belonging.
Thank you both. Is there another rebuttal? No, okay. I do want to let you know that there is another question about this coming up in a few questions. So keep those juices flowing in your brain. All right.
Love to talk about housing in these debates.
All
It's important in Madison. All right. So our next question is about COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has upended lives, caused financial hardships, closed opportunities for many. Several months ago, the Common Council passed a budget that was characterized by the mayor as painful. Before the pandemic, there were already many worthy projects deserving of staff time and city funds. We want to ask you what you will prioritize if you are elected. A listener asked a very similar question. They said, will you work to get Madison back to normal after the pandemic, or will you use this disruption to create a new vision for our city? Jeanette, we are starting with you this time. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so for COVID-19, that is the current priority for everybody, and that will be my priority. In our district, as like everywhere else in Madison, we are having a housing insecurity issue. We have people that cannot pay their rents or cannot pay their mortgage. With the moratorium, all we're doing with that is just holding on to payments and rents until the moratorium is expired, and then all that money is still due. So we're going to have a huge mass in our hands when it comes to people losing their homes. The new administration laser focused on the COVID-19 vaccine distribution, and it is up to us to gain the trust of people in our city to ensure high vaccination rates. As an elder, I will support organizations within our own district in their efforts and collaborations with the health department to reach as many people as possible. There are areas within District 10 that lack the privilege of effective intentional bus routes, and we need to really move on this rapid transit, so people can get to get the access to health that they need. So right now, there's a lot of issues on the agenda. There's a lot of businesses that are suffering, but our focus should be getting that vaccine and getting people not back to the old days. I don't think we're ever going to go there. We need to get people, we're going to get to a new normal, and we definitely should take advantage of this, or we have learned to make a new Madison.
Thank you very much. Mara, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I think in the short term, COVID leaves us in a position of making sure we keep people alive and healthy. But we've also learned through this process that there are many things that we want to be new, and some things we want to go back to the old way. New, one of the things that I think has been a huge benefit's probably not the right word, but a huge item that we learned about was having virtual city meetings. How many more people can participate and be informed? I do not want that to go away. I want the meetings to continue to be virtual for everyone to participate as they can. Plus, you can go back and look at them later if you don't have time at the moment. We have learned about new ways of education that we need to learn from as we move forward and get kids back in school. But there are some things like downtown Madison The experience of being in downtown Madison is something that Madison has a reputation of for decades, probably longer than that. How much of that do we want back? So when I look at rebuilding downtown, I want some of that old downtown back. I want to be able to recognize State Street and have an experience. I don't go to State Street just to go to one store or to pick one thing up. It's the experience of being down there that I want to have us get back to. So part of the old, also definitely some of the new. In the meantime, let's keep people alive and healthy.
Thank you both. Any rebuttals for this question? All right, I'll turn to Shali.
Thank you both so much. So our next question has to do with policing. In the last 2 years, the City Council has created a civilian oversight board and an independent police monitor position, although they're still working that out. Alders have limited what and how much the Madison Police Department can receive from the federal military surplus program. There is currently a proposal to ban or restrict the use of tear gas. And that's not all. What do you think of these recent steps made by the council, and what, if any, additional policing reforms do you support, given the protests against police violence and several nights of civil unrest downtown this summer? Let's start with Dr. Mara Eisch for this question, who has 3 minutes.
I think that in dealing with the police issues, I'm just going to go right to the dealing with the tear gas first. I understand that we don't want to use that as a first line of defense in dealing with crowd control or whatever else police would use that for. But I also don't think I can leave the police vulnerable in crowd control. So we either have to come up with another solution, or we cannot get rid of the tear gas as an option. The City of Madison's police, out of their 125,000 calls, used the tear gas or pepper spray in 0.18% of those situations. So it isn't like it's being overused, but it is very traumatic for us to watch it being used. So I really would like us to look at, are there other options? Because I can't leave them without some line of defense. In terms of the oversight committee, I am really looking forward to how this is going to play out. The community has wanted this. I don't expect that in 5 years it looks the same. We're going to learn. We're going to make changes. The chief is looking forward to it. So I think it's a big learning curve for all of us, and we need to approach it with an open mind and learn and develop as we go along.
Thank you. Jeanette Figueroa Cole, you have 3 minutes as well.
When it comes to the police department and the relationships with the city, with the city staff, with the city council, and with the community they serve, I wholly support the oversight board. I feel that we must hold each other accountable for our actions, our processes, and our procedures. We work in a professional environment, and none of us as city employees should be exempt from an oversight. So I fully support the police oversight board and the recommendations on the 2019 ad hoc committee. The city council has the responsibility to ensure that the board is funded for years to come. The board should remain an independent body. The council should support the findings of the board and bring new regulations to ensure that recommendations are implemented and followed. The police oversight board is composed of experts on policing and people that have had experiences dealing with the police. Hence, oversight of the police department should be welcome and supported. This will only yield a safer and stronger department and community. I absolutely believe that we need to ban tear gas. It is something that is banned everywhere else for any other purpose. It's a war item to use in war. So why are we doing that to our own citizens? The problem is not even the tear gas or when they use the tear gas and they use the tear gas once. It's the excessive amount of tear gas that was used on the protest on this summer. And not only the excessive amount that was used, but it was also used against protesters that were being peaceful. So the problem here is an abuse of power, and that needs to be addressed. Police needs better training, and they need to be demilitarized. So I strongly support getting rid of the tear gas and adopting the 2019 ad hoc recommendations.
The ad hoc review committee. Thank you both so much for your answers. Are there rebuttals or follow-ups to this question? It's a big question. There's so much there. Dr. Eisch?
Are we coming back to police again?
We might in a listener question, but we have some time.
Okay, then I want to add, we have invested, I can't talk about the oversight committee or the use of tear gas without talking about the police department itself. And we have invested a great deal in internal and external assessments of our police department. And we're not perfect, but we're really not too bad either. And when we look at the data for all types of crimes in the city, we noticed that in 2020, our heroin overdoses are down 38% from 2019. So the problems that the way we're addressing that problem is a good way. I think the police are doing some really good things, and I want to encourage them to do more. Rather than give that some focus and energy also, not just the one-time use of the tear gas. Thank you.
Okay. Jeanette, do you have a follow-up or do you want to save that? Okay. Thank you both so much. And Jade has the next question.
For our next question, we are turning to the environment. This question was submitted by 350 Madison, a local group committed to raising awareness for the need to address climate change. Local leadership makes many decisions that impact the climate, from the development and transportation to stormwater runoff and flooding. The folks at 350 Madison ask, if elected, how will you help Madison adapt to climate change impacts that we are already experiencing as a city? Since we started with Mara last time, we will move to Jeanette this time. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great question. I mean, this is an area that I have to be honest, I really hadn't focused much, and through this campaign, I really have paying more attention. There's so many issues out there, and the environment is extremely important. So some of the ideas that we have on regards to the environment is Madison should prepare for more frequent 100-year floods, in addition to implementing natural stormwater management techniques. And Dane County must begin an immediate cost study with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources into how we can lower the lakes of the lower Yahara watershed back to their natural levels. Take seriously the Starkweather Creek water contamination cleanup and establish clear policies to prevent further and future damage to our lakes. And we must hold accountable the people or the businesses, I should say, that are the source of such a contamination in the first place. We should develop a people-first transportation policy that puts people before cars, prioritizing bus rapid transit options that favor buses over personal vehicles, ensuring easy bus accessibility to all Madisonians, including the disabled and the elderly, and eventually expanding the State Street car-free zone to an entire isthmus where public transport works for everyone, paving the way for free and reduced bus transit for Madison residents and a car-free isthmus. There's areas in downtown, for example, we should definitely bring business back by closing downtown even for buses, and really embrace the fast the new transit project. So yes, we have to focus on the water contamination that we are talking about on the news every day, and we have to focus on transit. Those will be my two environmental changes that we can do immediately.
Thank you for that answer. Dr. Mara Eisch, we will turn to you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. In terms of the water, I think that I agree. We need to look at the watershed, how we are managing that, but not just in its levels. We need to pay attention to what's in our water. And the PFAS are a huge concern because we can't get rid of them. There are proven technologies to remove them from water, but we still have them. So wherever we put them, that's now going to be contaminated. So I think we need to be looking at how do we control the accumulation of these chemicals. And number one is going to be looking at how the fire departments use them to put out fires, how they're used over at the airport by the military. And I think if we don't put restrictions on them, they're not going to be incentivized to find another way to manage those problems. But we as individuals also need to be paying attention to how we are contributing so that our nonstick cookware, our microwave popcorn bags are contributing to the problem. Our takeout containers that are not made of cardboard are contributing to the problem. Now, I do want to say that saran wrap, wax paper, parchment paper, and Ziploc storage bags do not contribute to the problem. So it isn't everything that's plastic. So we need to be in the know of how we are contributing and hold the people who are, from a commercial perspective, how they are contributing also. One way I would like to participate in the management of climate change is being part of the Committee on Sustain Madison. That committee is doing some really creative work in terms of using solar, impacting transportation, composting, recycling, reuse, of course. I think they're really looking at how Madison can get to a net zero impact on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal on that answer? All right, I will move to Shali for our next question.
Thank you, Jade. So our next question will focus on housing, which we have already touched upon a little bit. This question is in part a listener question submitted in advance specifically for this district, which is very exciting. Thank you to the listener who did that. Candidates, if you are elected, how do you plan to serve those in District 10 and around the city who are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity? And we will start with Dr. Mara Eisch, who has 3 minutes.
So as a preface to this issue of housing, I think we need to keep in mind and note that only 47% of the homes in Madison are owner-occupied. And when I look at the thousands of apartments that we are building, that number is going to come down even more. That isn't contributing to our sense of neighborhoods, community, that we need to rely on dealing with some of these issues. The number one housing issues are occurring in Duns Marsh Allied. There is no plan at this point to address that. And I think of, when I think of the city building and managing housing, that's the neighborhood I'm thinking of. But that neighborhood also needs a resource center. They need a place to go to help themselves. So that needs to be part of building, addressing the housing issues. We also need to look at that part of District 10 has the highest density of population in the entire district. In District 10, housing density ranges from 1 person per household to 4.4 members per household. And I can tell you that it's Allied Duns Marsh that has the highest density. We need to be looking at that also. we gauge how much money people make. We use that as an indicator for how much they can afford to pay for housing. And if we look at somebody making 20% of the mean income of Madison qualifying for low-income housing, we're looking at them spending $318 a month on rent. There is no place in Madison you're going to get an apartment for $318. So anybody making 20% is not going to find housing. In fact, at 40%, you would pay $636 a month. Even that is hard to find. I tried. So developers are not going to solve this problem for us. We as a city need to look at how are we going to provide housing that is not going to be taken over and used for any other purpose except providing housing for people that are trying to get their feet on the ground, build their careers so that they can move on with their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eisch. Jeanette Figueroa Cole, you have 3 minutes as well.
Wow. Again, affordable housing is an issue for probably everyone who lives in Madison. Madison is not affordable. It's not an affordable place to live. So to just say that Ally Drive in our district is the only one who is most impacted by this, that's kind of a stretch. I mean, Ally Drive has a dense population and they have the most apartments in the area. That is true. But right now we're in the midst of a pandemic and we have people from the entire district, not just Ally Drive, from the entire district that are in risk of losing their homes, losing their apartment. So affordable housing is an enormous issue in this city. So we need to continue to again point out to do deals with the one that we did in Park Street, where there's a multi-level infrastructure and income, and it is giving the people that is going to be there the basic necessities that they need to survive, like transit and food. So we cannot just continue to put all people of the same category in one place and then expect them to thrive. We need to mix it up and we need to provide them a community-based system where they have food, they have transportation, they have their libraries, they have their community centers. And we need to stop thinking about affordable housing as something just for the poor people of Madison. Again, there's teachers, there's firefighters, there's farm workers, there's all these other people that cannot afford the rent because rent here is so expensive. But again, I'm very hopeful because I see how the fact that the city put that contract together and they use the criteria to make sure that the building was built mixed with a mix of different incomes and that it had the food stability in it. To me, that is a plus. And I hope, it will be my hope, and I will advocate for the city to continue to find to build on that direction, not to just continue to give contracts to landlords that are just going to build a high building or a building on in the corner and give nothing else. I am extremely excited to see that the city is moving on the right direction, the right direction when it comes to housing and looking at it through the equitable lens. So affordable housing is a big problem, but it can be resolved for everyone.
Thank you both. Are there rebuttals or follow-ups? No. Okay. We do want to remind our listeners and watchers, thank you everyone who's already contributed. If you're watching and you have a question, now is the time to definitely post it. We are going to move on to some of our listener questions, and I will let Jade take that away.
Yeah, because we do have so many questions already, we're going to stick to 2 minutes for these questions. And we're going to start with Jose, who has 2 very good questions. So I'll start with the first one he asked. How would you look to address the rise in community violence? We will start with Jeanette.
Yes. That is really the cornerstone of my campaign. I believe that healthy communities are safe communities. I will work with Madison-Dane County Public Health to finalize and implement a comprehensive violence prevention plan that utilizes a public health approach, focuses on prevention of violence before it occurs, encourages participation of those most impacted by the issues, and supports alternative emergency response services for mental health. We must collaborate with the appropriate governmental and nonprofit agencies to address the mental health crisis. 2020 and COVID-19 has opened a clear view of the disproportionate impacts on the people of color and into the inequalities and disparities that our own communities have been experiencing for years. We must provide and we must achieve a safe environment for all, that we focus on rapid transit that provides access to jobs, medical needs, libraries and schools, the elimination of food deserts, and provide access to healthy choices, access to job training programs, housing security supplemented with the resources needed to thrive. We must commit to address the mental health crisis by implementing programs like the Kahoot pilot. And we must collaborate with everyone, every agency available, so the resources can be used wisely.
Thank you. And we will move to Dr. Mara Eisch for the same question. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I do agree that public health plays a role in the health of our communities and dealing with crime and violence, because there's a root cause behind that. The unfortunate thing is, over the last several decades, public health has been the #1 budget gutted. We haven't provided for public health in the past. That's one thing we're learning from COVID, is that we need to do better there. But I do think we also need to involve the police in a positive way. Police should not be seen as the ones that are only there when there's a problem. I had the opportunity to visit with the Davenport Police Department and hear about their good neighbor type of program, where communities and police are working together with community safety workers, with police being aware in the neighborhoods, people knowing them. It's not when you see a police officer, what's going on? What's the problem? We need to develop that kind of neighborhood mentality. We know our neighbors, so we know who's walking in the neighborhood, who should be there. I would like to see the police jump out and play a game of pickup basketball with kids that are in the park. I don't want them to be afraid that something's going to happen to them because the police are there. So I think police have to be part of dealing with this violence. You know, it's interesting that I do believe our police department wants to be part of that solution and not seen as just the bad guy. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Any rebuttals before we move on? All right, I'll send it to Shali.
Okay, and this is this comes directly verbatim from a
This is also
online watcher.
Jose. Yeah, this is also
sorry.
from
Okay.
Jose.
Sorry, there's moving document around right now. So the Allied neighborhood, Jose writes, the Allied neighborhood is split between 2 school districts, 10 schools, and 2 municipalities. This often creates challenges for residents and neighborhood unity. How would you work collaboratively with the city of Fitchburg, Dane County, and our schools to ensure our residents' needs are met? And we will go first to Dr. Mara Eisch.
Thank you, Jose, for that question. in order to build a sense of community, the residents that I've talked to in Allied and Dud's Marsh, they need a neighborhood center. They need a place to go to build their community. I can't build it. I can be a part of it, but I can't build it. The people that are living there need to be building that sense of community. We need to provide infrastructure to allow that to happen. We need to create the opportunity for them to help themselves. In that community center needs to be space for gathering, for meals, for classes, for bringing in people for educational purposes. It's got to be a multi-purpose space for them to be. In talking with people in the community, there are people working as community health workers who are not being paid. We need to be funding these kinds of services that are contributing to helping make their community be a community. Thank you.
Okay. Jeanette Figueroa Cole, you have 2 minutes as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree. There's a potential there to have a building that is for multi-purpose, and it's something that I'm absolutely looking forward to work with the community on, regardless of the result of this race. Allied Drive is a place that I have relationships with, so I understand they already had the community. They already had this community built. They had the healthcare workers. They had the pantry. They have a lot of people that really cares and are working to satisfy their needs. When it comes to the relationship between Fitchburg and Verona and all those places, to be honest, I don't understand why the kids are split. To me, that's such a mistake. That is really one of the root causes of making it more difficult for that area to have that sense of belonging. The kids don't go to school to the same schools. They don't participate in the same activities. They are bussed around town farther routes than most of our kids get bussed. So I don't understand that whole process. I'm sorry to say, but the question on regards to collaboration, I am eager to work with Fitchburg, with the elder next door, with the people in Verona, to really build those relationships and work together for the Allied Drive neighborhood. Allied has a lot to give. Allied is a very rich community on people, resources, and people that really care. I've been here for 25 years, and I have seen how Allied have changed and have become what it is today. So they again need those basic needs met. They need the resources that provides them a better transit system, that have access to food, that have access to their doctors.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're passionate about the topic.
Good.
Sorry.
No, thank you. So I believe the next question is Jade's. Excellent.
Yes. So our next question actually comes from someone who's also running for alder, yet in a different district. Tyson Vitale asks, what lived experience will you bring that will inform your decisions on the council? We'll start with Yannette.
So, well, there's two main things that I feel are important in the council. There's a lot of very good people on the council that are well-intentioned people, but often I see that the same people are making decisions on behalf of issues they really had never experienced or had never been around of. So I feel that working for volunteering, helping people, experiencing homelessness has really opened my eyes to the needs of that community. So that I think that is a very big plus for the table. And then the second area that I think is very that I bring to the table is my background in analytics, process mapping, budgeting. So I am a person that cares, and like some people say, wear my heart in my sleeve. But I'm also think logically. I'm also see problems, and I can easily map solutions in my mind and work collaboratively with people to get the problem solved. So I like that. That's at the core of who I am. I like to solve problems, and I do that today at my job, and I do that. I can hold myself. I do that everywhere I go. So I think those are very, very good qualities to bring to a body, to the council body. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mara, we'll move to you. You have 2 minutes for this question.
Thank you. The lived experiences as a nurse educator and a nurse in the hospital, I think, bring me a great deal of lived experiences with many different people. Being able to ask the hard questions, being able to give the hard feedback, being able to see the elephant in the room and talk about it. I think are experiences that I've had that I'm going to be bringing to the role of alder. I also think that many of my experiences since I've moved to Madison will also contribute specifically. When I moved here, my son wanted to play football, and he was put on the South Madison team. I had no idea I was supposed to be afraid of being at Penn Park. I had no idea that we were supposed to be careful when we went over there. In fact, we got there, I saw all these big boys that were just as big as my son, and I thought, oh man, we're going to win. A Black police officer was the coach. A Black dad was a coach. We just jumped right in and participated. And I think from my experience afterwards of having people say, you were over at Penn Park, I'm glad I didn't hear those things first. And there were many of those experiences. For him, he was one of 3 white boys on a team of all Black boys. What a great experience for him to learn what it feels like to be a minority, although he wanted just to play football. But he could pay attention at least to that experience. And I think maybe as parents, we should make that experience available for some of our children. So I think it's those kinds of experiences and paying attention. And I can't tell you how many minority patients I've worked with who we've worked together through problems, healthcare related, as well as how they're going to recover. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next question. I told you we'd come back to policing. This comes from Erica on Facebook, who asks, well, I'm going to add a little bit to this. So Madison's body-worn camera feasibility review committee released their final report recently, recommending to the Madison Common Council a body camera pilot program with a long list of recommended procedures, but also warning that it won't fix, everything, right? It's not intended as a catch-all. And a listener asks online, how do you feel about body cameras? We will start with Dr. Mara Eisch, who has 2 minutes.
Thank you. I have been following along on the virtually of the meetings of the body cam. I know that our police force is looking forward to having them. Hearing from police forces surrounding Madison, they're glad they have them. Madison's not as a community real happy to be having them. So I'm really glad we're doing a pilot study on the north side. I know there's intention to move forward, but at least we'll have an opportunity to evaluate what some of the pluses and minuses are and any changes we'd want to make as we're moving forward. Everybody is filming police activity. but they're not filming what happened before the confrontation occurs. So we're only getting that one point on video when somebody finally sees there's a problem and puts their camera up. I'm really hoping that these body cams are going to be able to give us a bigger picture and also help the police force give the community an impression of what they actually do. There are bad apples in every profession. Will this make the bad apples behave better? I hope so. There aren't many of them, but if this is what it takes to keep them in line, great. I know that the same thing happens with teachers. We have bad teachers, we have good teachers. Fortunately, there aren't many. But those are the ones we hear about. We don't hear about all the great things that happen. So I'm really hoping that this provides us with we should have started this sooner kind of thinking. Once we get through this pilot phase and look at the benefits it can bring us. If it doesn't work out, I hope we also have the courage to say, this isn't serving us well.
Okay, thank you. Jeanette Figueroa, Cole, you have 2 minutes.
I don't even know where to begin on this one. No, I also have been following this committee work, and my biggest concern here is funding. I don't understand why we're always so eager to throw more money at one institution when that money can be used for the Kahoot project, for the Kahoot pilot, for example. We're trying to build a first aid mental health crisis organization, and we are giving one ambulance and a one shift person, which is great because it's just a pilot, but that is money that can be used on the mental health crisis. Cameras, like Mara said, everybody has a camera out. Everybody, we have seen video of police interactions with people forever. That is not different. Hey, we had a chokehold, bad cops or whatever. We have seen videos from different angles, and it's the same, that we get the same results. So what is this camera going to do? Absolutely nothing. And the worst thing about this is that pilot is already going to cost us money. But if we decide to get that to the entire city, nobody in the committee has even able to tell us how much money this is going to cost. This is going to really messed up with a budget that we so desperately need to cover health issues. So I am totally against the cameras, and mostly, there's evidence that they don't work. There's tons of evidence if you do some reading, and mainly because of the budget. It's a lot of money, and I asked from that committee to give us an itemized bill of how much this was going to cost us if the cameras were implemented across the city. And yet we haven't seen those numbers. They decided to just rush the documentation over and send it to the council without the proper numbers. So I really hope that the council takes a look at those details and make a decision based on the budget. Thank you.
Sorry. So before we go to our closing statements, and I hope Jade will forgive me for doing this, I did say at near the beginning, or half an hour ago, that we would revisit policing just a little bit more. And I wanted to ask you both quickly before we go to closing statements. We talked a lot about what the Common Council has done already, or what they're in the process of revisiting. But are there policing reforms that you think the council should undertake that haven't been introduced yet, that you would do as alder if elected, or what your stance would be on policing if elected to alder for this district? Minus all the other things we talked about. Sorry, I didn't have that written out, so that was a bit rambly. So let us start with Jeanette, who has 2 minutes. Thank you.
So, again, the police was given an entire roadmap of all the things that they need to do to improve their department. The 2019 ad hoc documentation provides them all the information that they need in regards to training, on regards to how to deal with the community, on regards of community policing, excessive use of force, accountability. I think that's the number one thing. That's all we're asking for. We have been asking for accountability forever. We continue to see these cases over and over around the country. And yes, we have a good police department compared to others, but still we have the same issues in here. We have had people that had died on the hands of the police. So we had the same issues. We cannot say that we're better than other places when we have the same issues. So accountability to me is the biggest missing puzzle on these when it comes to policing. And yet accountability is the one thing that builds trust between people. Again, cameras, we have seen the videos, we have seen everything that we need to see, and we have seen the abuse of power that we had there. Earlier, when Mara talks about teachers, bad apples, teachers don't carry guns. They have power, but they don't have a power to actually end the life of an individual. So it's not the same thing. It's really not the same thing. So to me, accountability, ways to make sure that we have procedures and we make the police accountable for them.
Thank you, Jeanette. Dr. Mara Eisch, the same question, which I can't put in the chat, but are there specific policies, procedures, reforms that you would recommend?
I think that the power that the teacher has is equal to the power that the police has. Now, the number of people that the bad apple police is going to hurt is going to be minuscule compared to the damage that a bad teacher can do. Lifelong damage. So I don't see them as being less to deal with. They're both trouble that we need to manage. Things that I think we need to focus on with our police department is proactive things, the Good Neighbor projects, things that are not just dealing with violence. I can't imagine being a police officer in our community today to go from a shooting of 30 rounds to resuscitating a 12-year-old girl to another shooting at another park with 70 rounds. When do they have time for emotional recovery? The PTS damage must be just incredible. That brings me to my other concern about the police force and what we need to be working on is the longevity. The average tenure of the foot patrol officer we have is 3 years or less. I know working on a unit with staff nurses that have 2 to 3 years experience and that's all that's there, there's no resource. There's no experienced person to go to. So when we look at being competent, that's just the minimum level we want. We want proficient and expert people on the street. And we want those experts there for the new people to come in and have as a reference or a resource.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Jade, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeanette has a rebuttal left. And what?
I think they both do. Is that
They both
correct?
do. I think so. Sorry. I usually keep track, but I haven't been. Are there any rebuttals? Last question. No.
I'll take it. I won't take the entire time. But again, I can compare a teacher with a police officer. Yes, the teacher can harm a child on a long term, and that child can go to get therapy and deal with the issue trauma that the teacher put on them. A police officer can end someone's life in an instant. In an instant. There's no comparison here. And those are the things that we need to address. There are bad apples everywhere. We have a very good police department. I acknowledge that. And the police needs help. They want help. They want to be dealing with police businesses, not just every single thing under the sun. Why do I have to go into the police department to file a form when I go on vacation? Why? Why is that a task of the police to watch my house when I'm on vacation? is ridiculous. So I think we have to help the police and remove from the police the things that they should not be working on. And that's how we solve these problems.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. Dr. Mara Eisch, do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, yes. The child who, I guess it all comes from perspective and from our lived experiences. So the child that's been abused in a school situation isn't on the front page. I want to recognize that abuse comes in many, many places, in many, many forms, and does long-term damage in many ways. It's not, right now we're focusing on the police because that's what's in front of us. But if we're truly going to look at this as, I think we just need to recognize that there's more than just police that are out there causing damage.
Thank you both for using all of your rebuttals. We are past the hour, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our final remarks. Both candidates, you will have 3 minutes, and we will begin with Dr. Mara Eisch.
Jeanette, we were good learners using our rebuttal time. Thank you. The idea of running for alder has been on my mind for quite some time. Now I am at a point that I have time to dedicate to the position. I have time to be available, approachable, and accessible. I also have had recent concerns in my neighborhood and how we were managed in the proposed development of a project. It seemed the developer had the ear of the city before the residents. Now, I don't have any person to blame for this. Rather, I see it as a process problem. There was a mechanism for the neighborhood to speak, but nobody listened. The process did not address the residents' concerns. I began to wonder who else is getting passed over in the current processes. Do our processes serve the people? Are they too cumbersome and leave the residents behind? Over time, our processes should be assessed to determine if they are still serving us well. So I'm running to bring the voices of all of District 10 to the table of city government, to be listened to regarding safety, policing, housing, transportation, wellness, and food deserts. I have prosperous and disadvantaged neighborhoods in District 10. They both want to be listened to. I want to help them help themselves. I see myself as a communication conduit between the city and the residents, and communication should flow both ways. I am not a career politician. I may stumble on my words and use words that somebody may see differently. I invite you to challenge me rather than judge me and walk away. Call me, email me, tell me why you did not like what I said or how I could have said it better. Let's talk to understand each other. It does not mean that we will agree on everything, but I think we'll agree on more than we thought originally. The goal is to understand each other. We have tried to legislate our way out of racial inequality and social injustice for decades. We too often find ourselves right where we started. The city has a role in addressing racial inequality and social injustice concerns relating to policing, housing, transportation, food insecurity, but we have a responsibility as individuals also. In fact, I don't think the city's efforts will work until we take on our individual responsibility, and it won't cost us a dime. I truly believe for us to make progress, we need to start talking to each other. Everyone is on a journey. Everyone has lived experiences. Let's talk to each other. Let's not talk at each other, but with each other. So I invite everyone to talk to someone of a different color this week. Ask them about their journey. Tell them about yours. And if you actually do this, email me and tell me how it went at maraforalder@gmail.com. I had the opportunity to speak with a student of mine, and it turned out great. So I encourage you to please, let's start a grassroots effort.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mara Eisch. And we will move on to Jeanette Figueroa Cole. Jeanette Figueroa Cole, you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. Again, thank you to Ward for having me and for facilitating this debate. Thank you, Mara, listeners, and thank you so much to the most amazing campaign team that I could land it on. I mean, these people have been great. My agenda is very, very simple. Healthy communities are safe communities. The safety of each neighborhood in District 10 benefits the entire district and the city of Madison. We can achieve safety by ensuring that people's basic needs are served and by making sure they have the resources to thrive. To do so, we must develop a budget that focuses on the needs of the people and not the needs of an individual agency. A budget must reflect the city's priorities, and our current priority is health. We must work together to combat the mental health crisis we're facing, and we have to recognize, we have to accept that COVID-19 and violence are both pandemics that need to be approached from the public health perspective. We need to alleviate the extra burden mental health has in our police officers. Each quarter in 2020 was dedicated to 4,000 hours of work on cases and incidents involving the mentally ill. We must do better for our police officers and for our community. Let's focus on the health of our people and invest in the tools necessary to help them thrive. Thank you for having me. And if you want more information about my campaign, you want to donate or you want to volunteer, please find me on my webpage on YANNETTE, the number 4, Madison.com. That is Jeanette for Madison.com. Thank you and good night. Buenas noches.
Thank you both so much for joining us tonight. That's Dr. Mara Eisch and Jeanette Figueroa Cole, who will compete in the spring election on Tuesday, April 6th. While this election won't head to a primary, don't forget to vote in the spring primary on Tuesday, February 16th in just a couple of weeks. And don't forget to check out our spring election guide, where we link to all the candidates and you can also see all of these debates.
And if you want to vote absentee, remember to check to make sure that your ballot is coming. We want to thank all of our viewers for participating, and Alec, that's at High Winds on Twitter, for live tweeting this and all future debates. It's very cool. Our next debate will be tomorrow, Saturday at 1 p.m., where we will head to District 20. I'm your host, Jade Siri Ramos. I am producing all the debates this season.
And I'm your host, Shelly Pittman. That's at Highest Winds on Twitter. And you can see all of these when you head there. Thank you all again so much. Have a wonderful night.